Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am Rachel from Rachel Reads, and today I'm going to be doing my monthly wrap up for the month of August, so my August wrap up, which probably would have been a little bit easier to say. So if you can hear like a doof 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 in the background, that's my neighbour playing his drums. It's been an issue, it's always an issue, but you know, this is my only time to film. So if you watched my TBR, you will know that there were 7 books on my TBR, and I used my name to show the books that I was going to read, and I'll show that up on the screen here. So for R, I had The Road Between Us. A, I had All the Lights We Cannot See. C, I had The Chain. H, I had Half Moon Lake. A, I had The Accusation. E, I had The Escape Artist. And L, I had The Last House Guest. In August, I also completed Thriller Thorn, and I had my TBR, which I'll pop up here, the little game board of books that I wanted to read. And unfortunately, from that Thriller Thorn TBR, I only read 1 book. But before I get into the books that I read, I just want to give you a few stats. And if you see me looking down, I'm just looking at my little YouTube book with all of my notes, so you can see here. So in August, I read 0 1-star books. I read 1 2-star book, 2 3-star books, 3 4-star books, and 2 5-star books, with 8 in total. I read 2 historical fiction, 5 thrillers, and 1 contemporary novel. So it makes sense that I read 5 thrillers because it was Thriller-a-thon. So this month, I read 3,048 pages in total, with an average book length of 381 pages, and on the average year of the books that I read was published in 2015. Okay, so the first book that I read this month is The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks, and I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. So The Wife Between Us, I think, had a lot of potential. So it starts off by saying, when you read this book, you'll make many assumptions. It's about a jealous, obsessed wife obsessed with her replacement. It's about a younger woman set to marry the man she loves. The first wife seems like a disaster. Her replacement is the perfect woman. You will assume you know the motives, the history, the anatomy of the relationships. You'll be wrong. So when you read that, you think this is going to be a really cool psychological domestic thriller. However, it really isn't that. This is more, I didn't find this thrilling at all. It was more about the destruction of a marriage and what goes on between a marriage. I wouldn't classify this as a thriller at all, to be honest. I remember reading this and I thought that it read more like a chick lit sort of romance book, to be honest. And it started with a scorned wife who has been left by her husband, and the husband is a bastard and in love with somebody else, and you know, this woman has to win her husband back or make him suffer or something. And that's really what it felt like. There are a couple of plot twists in here, but I felt that they were really obvious and I guessed them very well in advance. To be honest, I just really got bored in this book and I didn't enjoy it. And I remember in my Goodreads, I summarized with this is not a thriller, it's a dull novel about a scorned wife. And that's still how I feel. So I did not enjoy this one at all, really. The next book that I read was something that a few of you are quite interested in me reading. And I read this as a part of my name picks my TBR. And that was The Chain by Adrienne McKenty. And I gave this 3 stars. Now, this is a book about, let me just sort of, the morning starts like any other. Rachel Klein drops her daughter Kylie off at the bus stop and heads out on her day. But then a phone call changes everything. A woman has Kylie bound and gagged in the back seat, and the only way Rachel will ever see her child again is if she pays the ransom and kidnaps another child. So the idea is that, so one person kidnaps a child, and then to get their child, so, you know, a parent has their child kidnapped, and the only way to get their child released is to kidnap another child, and so on and so forth. And it's this big long chain that's been going on for years. And the premise was really good and really interesting. And the first part of the book I really enjoyed. So the first part of the book, so I'm just looking at the book. The first part of the book ends at page 200, and the book goes for 357 pages. If this book ended at page 200, I think I would have really enjoyed it. It was everything after in part 2 that I didn't enjoy, and it just felt like it was fluffy and unenjoyable. Just looking back at my Goodreads review, I said that if this book had ended at part 1, I would have given it 4 stars, which I would have. It is written really simplistically, like really basically, but I enjoyed the characters and I enjoyed the plot. The problem with the second half of the plot is in that first chapter or so, the author lays out everything that's going to happen in part 2. So you just sort of, you know what's going to happen and you know what to expect, and it's just kind of boring. They give everything away. So really, I would have liked it to just end at part 1. So that was The Chain by Adrian McKinty. Okay, the third book I read this month was also for My Name Chooses My TBR, and that is a historical fiction / thriller, which was Half Moon Lake by Kirsten Alexander. And I was really excited. I posted a picture of this up on my Instagram, and Kirsten Alexander actually replied, so thank you. And she said she was really appreciative of you know, the publicity that I provided. Not that I really gave it much publicity, but she you know, she reached out, and that was really cool. I don't know if I said so, but I gave this book 4 stars. So this is based on the true story of, what's his name? Okay, it's based on the true story of Bobby Dunbar, who is a little boy that actually went missing. So this story takes place in 1913 when a little 4-year-old boy goes off with his brothers into the woods and he never comes back. So his wealthy parents spend several years looking for him, and eventually a boy is discovered. However, another woman claims that he is her son, and there is this big legal battle that ensures, and I'm not going to give you the ending, but you know, nobody's happy and nobody walks away happy. I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the historical fiction elements. I really liked reading about pre-World War I Louisiana. I thought that was really interesting. I liked reading about the diverse nature of Louisiana during this time, about the segregation and the social injustices and how money equals power. I really liked that. Yeah, so I did really enjoy this book, and I would recommend it. It's not I don't think it's a well-known book. It's only been rated by 340 people this on Goodreads, so I would get your hands on this if you can find it. I really enjoyed it. It's good historical fiction with some thrilling elements, so if you have never really read any historical fiction but you enjoy thrillers, it may be the way to get into that. And again, that was for the H in Rachel. The next book that I read was also historical fiction, and that was All the Lights We Cannot See by Anton Doerr. And this has been on my TBR list since about 2014 or 2015, for years. And I finally picked it up. I gave this book 5 out of 5, and I also read this for My Name Picks My TBR, and it was the first A. It took me a while to get into this book, to be honest. It was quite slow. It's just so heavy on description and language, which makes sense because the main character is blind. So I think it's trying to create that world where you can imagine what she is imagining, and it's trying to help you understand what she is experiencing in World War II. So it takes place in the beginnings of World War II. Well, not the beginnings of World War II. It takes place during the occupation of France. So her and her father live in Paris, and they flee Paris during the occupation to a seaside village in Brittany, I think. And it's about her story living through the occupation. And subsequent chapters are told from the perspective of Werner, who is a German orphan, and he ends up being recruited into the Hitler Youth and is eventually sent to the front underage because he He pisses off one of his teachers essentially, and this teacher claims that he has lied about his age. So this book actually took me a whole week to read, and not because it's 500 pages, which it is, it's just because of the description and the imagery. I couldn't sit down and read endlessly. It was exhausting, but the imagery that it created was so beautiful that you just needed to take your time and read this properly. And yeah, it's truly beautiful, and I would highly recommend, even if you're not into historical fiction, pick this one up. I think you will enjoy it. Okay, the next book that I read was the first book that I read for Thriller Thorn. And this is the only book that you would have seen in my Thriller Thorn haul. And that was The Good Girl by Mary Q. Becker. And I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So this is the second Mary Q. Becker novel that I read, and that's why I read this. It's by an author that I had already read before for that prompt. And I did not particularly enjoy the first Mary Q. Becker novel that I read, which was Every Last Lie. I always forget what it's called. And I didn't enjoy the plot in that story, but I did enjoy the writing style. This book, I enjoyed both the writing style and the plot. I really enjoyed both of those elements. This is about a girl named Mia, and she's abducted by a man named Colin. So she's abducted because she's the daughter of a prominent judge, except Colin changes his mind at the last minute. Instead of handing her over to the people that have hired him, he decides he can't go through with it, and he takes her to a remote cabin to spare her, because he knows that if she goes to the people that have paid for her, you know, she will be murdered. So the book is told from 3 perspectives, I think. It's told from Colin, who's the kidnapper. It's told from Mia's mother, who is called Eve, and it's told by the, and also by the police officer who is investigating the crime, Gabe. And it's told over 2 timelines. So before Mia was abducted and after she has been returned. I think that there were some really likable characters in here, and there was also some unlikable characters, but they were all really 3-dimensional and you could really relate to them in some way. I also enjoyed the plot. There were some twists that I saw coming, there were some that I didn't see coming, but overall I did really enjoy the plot. And yes, this is by far more enjoyable than that first Mary Q. Becker novel that I read, and I am looking forward to getting into some more. So that was The Good Girl by Mary Q. Becker. The next book that I read was not on my what's it called? TBR. It was not on my Thriller Thorn TBR, and that is Still House Lake by Rachel Caine. And I've been wanting to read this ever since I heard of it. I ended up reading this for the prompts, most anticipated novel and new author to you. So Rachel Caine, I've not read anything by her, and I just really wanted to pick up this book. And it is about a woman named Gina Royale, and her husband was a serial killer, although she didn't know. She discovers that he's a serial killer and he goes to prison, and she goes on the run from all of the attention and persecution that she is getting because people believe that she was involved in the crime. So she reinvents herself as Gwen Proctor, and her children settle on Still House Lake. However, it becomes clear that eventually someone has figured out where they are and starts sending her notes, and she's really nervous that something is going to happen because she is constantly receiving death threats and threats against her children. So this book was so good. I gave it 5 stars. I've already ordered the next book in the series, so it is a series. I think there's 3 books so far and another one to come out. Yeah, I loved this book. It was written really well. It was very character driven. Like, the plot wasn't anything special. It kind of reminded me of The Following, which is a TV show with Kevin Bacon about a serial killer with a following, and he is obsessed with his ex-wife and his child. Anyway, this was so good. I really enjoyed it. Get your hands on it. Just a beautiful character driven book. Get it. The next book that I read was also for Thriller Thorn, and I brought this in because it was also on my August TBR, and I was trying to merge the 2 together, so I was able to tackle 2 books. And this was, well, you could also count this as a author that is new to you, so I'll do that. And this is an Australian book. I hadn't realized it when I started reading. It is also based on a true story. It's based on the, let me look it up. It's based on the Canning affair. So about a woman who accused a couple of abducting her back in the 1800s, I think. Either the 1800s or the 18th century, I can't remember. But it was about the Canning affair. And so this is a modern retelling of that story in sort of a thrillery, mystery sort of way. I gave this book a 4-star. So it's about 18-year-old Ali Canning is found shivering and barely conscious on the country road. Her bizarre story of kidnap and escape enthralls the nation. Sorry about the barking, that's not my dog, that's the next door neighbours and their little ferals. They just, like, they never walk their dogs and they never take them out, and like he always tries, like he eats through our fence to try and get at our dog. And that's the back. So the really loud one is the house just there. The little yippy one is the house back there, and there's also one on the other side. So we're like circled by dogs that love to bark. I mean, my little puppy likes to bark too, but nothing like these dogs. Can we go now? I'm just gonna go. So what did I get up to? So 18-year-old Ali Canning is found shivering conscious on a country road, and her bizarre story of kidnap and escape enthralls the nation. Who would do such a thing and why? Local drama teacher Susanna Wells was once a minor celebrity and is new to town. Suddenly she's in the spotlight again, accused of being a monster who drugged and bound a teenager in the basement. So we've got two stories. We've got the story of Ali, who claims that Susanna has bound her and kept her hostage for a month in her basement. And then we've got the story of Susanna, who's like, I have no idea who this woman is. Like, I've never seen her in my life. Why would I possibly do this? And essentially, Susanna's life begins to fall apart because of these accusations. And everything is so perfect. Like, there's DNA evidence, there's witnesses, there's, you know, like, Ali can describe the inside of Susanna's house, but it's all a little bit too perfect. And you're constantly wondering, like, is Susanna a really good liar? Like, is she an unreliable narrator, or is Ali lying? But why would Ali lie? Why would someone make this up? So that was constantly, I was overthinking this book the whole way through. I was like, it's too perfect. Ali has to be lying. But then if she's lying, how did all that stuff get there? But if she's not lying, what's the point of the story? Like, it's just a waste. Anyway, like, that was my whole, like, tick, 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 tick of my brain throughout this whole book. It's a bit of a mind fudge, and I don't think it was meant that way. I think I was just overthinking everything. So I did end up figuring out most of the plot lines about 3/4 of the way through. Like, I was pretty sure about what was happening. I couldn't actually figure out the motive for what I'd figured out. I can't really tell you that without giving spoilers, but so I was surprised by the motive. I wasn't necessarily surprised by the plot twists, but I did enjoy the book, and I would recommend it, especially if you're looking into getting some more Australian authors into your repertoire. So I also read, so I said that was also for My Name Picks My TBR, and that was the second A in Rachel. And the last book I managed to read this month was not for Thriller Thorn, so I only got through 3 books for Thriller Thorn. This was for just My Name Picks My TBR, and this was my only contemporary read for the month, and that was The Escape Artist by Diane Chamberlain. Now, when I bought this, I originally thought it was a new book published in 2017. Turns out this was just a new edition. It was actually published in 1997. So, but you can't really tell except for references to technology. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 3-star. And the reason I gave it a 3-star is it just isn't as good as other Diane Chamberlain works. If this was by any other author, I probably would have given it 4 stars. But, you know, the gift of hindsight, like, you're constantly going to compare an author's work to her other work. So it was about a woman named Susanna Miller, and she loses custody of her child to her ex-husband and his new wife. It just happens, you know, that the ex-husband was screwing his new wife while he was still married to Susanna, and she caught them. But, you know, these things happen, right? Like, you just give custody to adulterous lying bastards. But anyway, so she goes on the run, she kidnaps her child, and that's essentially the story. Except there's this little side note story that when she has run away to Annapolis in Maryland, she discovers a list of names and they're linked to a crime, and she's like, can I hand this list over to the police when I'm on the run or whatever. Anyway, that wasn't the element I liked about this story. What I liked is the tale of the custody battle and how you have these two women. You have Susanna, who is the natural mother, and you have Peggy, who is the stepmother, and they are both fighting over this child. So the child is 11 months old, and they both think that they can provide him the best possible life. Neither of them actually talk to one another and figure out how they could give him the best possible life together. They both think that they should have sole custody and sole discretion over poor Tyler. Now, the natural father has absolutely no interest in the baby. He's only interested because his new wife, Peggy, cannot have children and she desperately wants children. So I think Peggy does actually want what's best for Tyler, but she's mixed up because she wants this baby so badly because she's never going to be able to have any of her own. I think if it just focused on that element, that that discussion about what is best for the child and the custody battle, I think it would have been a really good story. When it started fluffing in like this, this killer list and, who's going to die next, I think that just kind of ruined the story for me, and that's why I only gave it a 3 out of 5, not a 4 out of 5. Yeah, I just wanted it to focus more on the women and their motivations and what happened to Susanna at the end, because the end was just kind of like unbelievable. It's like, can you possibly have that kind of ending? Like, is that realistic? Anyway, I'm not going to tell you what it was because it will spoil, but I love Diane Chamberlain. This is probably not my recommendation if you're going to start with her. If you would like a recommendation about a good Diane Chamberlain to start with, send me a private message, comment down below, and I will help you out. So they are the 8 books that I read this month. I really enjoyed them. Yeah, like I had a really good reading month this month. 8 books when I'm working full-time is pretty good. That's 2 books a week. It usually takes me like Monday to Friday to read 1 book, and then I can smash one out Saturday, Sunday, which I think is pretty reasonable. Hopefully when I get onto school holidays, I'll be able to smash a few more books out for you and be able to give you a few more recommendations. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. If you have read any of these videos, please let me if you've read any of these books, please let me know if you liked them or didn't like them or what you thought. Don't forget to check out my next TBR, so the lot where I had the lottery pick my books and it was completely random, completely randomly generated. Go and check that out, and yeah, thanks for watching and I will catch you later. Bye.